CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris and Daily Beast political reporter Betsy Woodruff. So let's look ahead, gang, and look ahead by looking previously back to last night. President Obama, by any measure, set a bar awfully high for then someone to come out tonight and surmount, even if it is the party's official nominee. What did last night do for her in that regard, Steve?
I mean, I would argue that it wasn't just Obama, but Vice President Biden and Michael Bloomberg to a certain extent, and Tim Kaine to a certain extent. But really, in terms of inspiring the audience and getting the audience fired up, I think Obama and Biden really set the bar high for her. And she's not known to be an inspirational speaker. She's not known to be a fiery speaker. You know, and I think it's going to be difficult for her to sort of beat Obama and Biden in that regard. So she's just really going to have to go out there and tell her story. You're going to hear a lot of themes that we've heard from her over the last couple of decades. I mean, they're advertising this as It Takes a Village. And if you remember, that was her book from 20 years ago. Yet we're going to hear themes from that, which sort of play into her theme this year, which is Stronger Together. She's going to push forth this optimistic vision, which Obama sort of set out last night, while at the same time really trying to eviscerate Donald Trump. And you know, that argument was the harshest we heard all week from those speakers that I mentioned earlier. They really went after him. I mean, you can look up in your dictionary all the negative words you can use to describe a politician: con artist, fraud, dangerous. Obama suggested his strongman routine is really dictatorial. I mean, they were really just sort of laying this out like this guy is the worst choice you could possibly make for president. She's going to have to pick that up and carry that forward. They made a pretty compelling argument. Now she's going to have to do that. We'll see if she can actually pick that up and advance it.
Betsy, what do you think?
I think it's going to be interesting to see if she builds on sort of the foundation that Tim Kaine set of courting disillusioned Republicans. Yeah. He spent a lot of the speech, talking about the fact that his father-in-law was currently a Republican who started voting for Democrats, talking about the fact that Republicans in the Senate tell him privately that they thought Hillary Clinton was a really good senator. He made a pretty explicit pitch to disaffected Republicans that the Democratic Party is now a safe space for them, a potential home, particularly, of course, focusing on Hillary Clinton's history of working across the aisle, the fact that she isn't as ideologically progressive as Bernie Sanders is. That said, it's a delicate dance for them, of course, because as those of us in the arena saw, there's some very acrimonious and energetic anti-Hillary folks who are delegates at this convention. During Kaine's and Obama's speeches, we saw tons of no TPP signs. The president got heckled a little bit by isolated folks who were obviously really frustrated with this trade deal. So I think an important thing to keep an eye on is, does Hillary Clinton court Republicans in a way that lets her simultaneously appeal to Bernie supporters, or does she do so much to present herself as the compromise candidate that many of the disaffected Sanders, progressive, activist types who are in the room make more of a scene than she might want?
There was always an enthusiasm among Democrats and some independents for Barack Obama, and you saw that in 2008, 2012. How does she generate that enthusiasm for that base group of voters that voted for him? That's the big challenge for her.
Well, and how
she's going to reach out to Republicans, but she's got to get she could take care of business at home first.
And how does she answer the people who are crying 4 more years during President Obama's speech last night? They might get that in terms of policy, but there's a clear love for the man. And because this is also to a degree an optical exercise, these 4 days spent here in Philadelphia, notedly, her husband gave a speech, and she was not in the house for it. She did not walk out onto the stage to embrace him. We saw a real moment of intimacy between two formerly bitter rivals, obviously two people who've been worked together in the administration, but did we see perhaps a preview of what we can expect in the months to come in terms of President Obama as chief surrogate?
Oh, absolutely, I think so. And it was interesting. He used a phrase last night. He said, she is the most experienced man or woman to ever run for president.
Not me. Right. Not Bill.
Right. Bill loved that, too, by the way. And I think that's what you're going to see. And this is where it gets really delicate, because you mentioned the audience was chanting 4 more years for Obama. Well, that's what Republicans are hoping to sort of push forth, is say this is going to be another Obama term. Do you want a 3rd term of Barack Obama? They're banking on the fact that Americans don't want that. And so he's going to have to get out there, really point to the things that he's succeeded at, but also point out that she's her own person, and again, more experienced than he ever was in this position, and sell her as her own. This will be her own presidency.
One thing Republican operatives say in private is that Hillary Clinton's not going to change anything. They're not worried she's going to do some sort of massive overhaul of just significant policy changes. Their assumption going into the next few months is that Hillary Clinton will not pitch American voters on making a radical shift. Mm-hmm. This is not a hope change election. This is a maintain the status quo election. Given the fact that, depending on what poll numbers you look at, upwards of 70% of Americans think the country's on the wrong track, that is potentially a toxic combination for Democrats. And the challenge for Hillary is saying, I'm improving things, but also there's some problems that I'm going to fix, but also Obama's great. It's not exactly going to be 4 more years of his term. And that's tough, right? And that's not a particularly inspiring message. So she's got a thin line to walk.
And she'll have to walk it tonight against the backdrop of 3 days which have seen an interesting, perhaps, attempt, some more successful than others, at humanizing her. It is, we beat that like a dead horse, it seems, in each and every convention. But it might be argued that still the most effective attempt at humanizing her thus far has been actually night one by Michelle Obama in speaking about Hillary as a mother. USA Today has today a guide to wooing, in which they point out that in her last 5 speeches before Democratic audiences, she has always been making the case for someone else. They point to and I will put the gender specificity on USA Today, but they say, look, it is, women sometimes have a problem with self-promotion. Tonight, she is going to have to essentially sell herself in the biggest speech of her life, in the biggest moment of her political career, 1 decade in the making. Do you think she has it in her?
That's a good question. She clearly is very comfortable talking about the specific policy achievements that she's done. She's really comfortable talking about her work at the Children's Defense Fund, her work as First Lady of Arkansas, First Lady of the U.S., Secretary of State. She's really comfortable going through this laundry list of accomplishments that she has. The problem is that she doesn't have sort of a blockbuster, outsized accomplishment the way President Obama has. And it's challenging for her to sort of zero in on one moment. A video that aired right before Madeleine Albright spoke before her a few nights ago at the convention talked about the fact that she was instrumental in ending the 2012 conflict, the Gaza war between Israel and Palestinians there. That's a challenging moment to bring up because a lot of problems in the Middle East are very, very far from resolved. And so for her making sort of this technocratic, wonky pitch about her record, number one is a little challenging for audiences to digest, but number two is, it doesn't necessarily have the inspirational wow factor that Obama's rhetoric would have brought. Let's
also not forget that this is a woman who's been in the public eye, at least nationally, since 1992. I looked this, I thought I remembered it, I looked it up. She was on that famous 60 Minutes interview with Bill Clinton night after the Super Bowl, or the night of the Super Bowl in 1992, where she got criticized for saying, she didn't want to be that type of woman to stay home and make tea, right? That has been a challenge for her. This personality, persona, humanizing part of Hillary Clinton has been a challenge for her for 25 years. People's views of her as a person are so set in concrete at this point that I'm not sure there's much she can do. She needs people like Michelle Obama. She needs Chelsea Clinton, who's going to get up and introduce her tonight, to try to help shatter that. But this has always been a problem for Hillary Clinton. It goes back to when she was First Lady of Arkansas. And maybe she's just the type of person that is never going to be totally humanized to the voter, which is, again, a problem for her, but she clearly can get elected. She got elected to Senate in New York. So she's got to figure out that balance. She'll never be the lovable, I'm going to have a beer with person, but maybe she can get a little closer to that tonight.
And one challenge is sometimes when she tries to humanize herself, it comes off really weird. About 2 weeks ago when she and Tim Kaine made one of their first joint campaign appearances in Annandale, she had this moment that drew enormous mockery when she said, I don't know what Pokemon Go is, but I hope they make a Pokemon Go to the polls. Wah, wah. It's like, you can do that, that's fine, but maybe you should just,
Maybe that is just the essence of the woman.
And that's fine.
I think about how President Obama at the Correspondents' Dinner earlier this year spoke of her as your aunt who just got on Facebook. I mean, maybe.
But not every politician is going to be Barack Obama. Not every politician is going to be Ronald Reagan, right? In fact, most of them aren't going to be. So she's got to figure out how to get just a little bit closer to that. Right, that's the big challenge, and she said she can do it awkwardly, but this is an opportunity for her tonight to try to do it less awkwardly.
As we hear the rehearsal behind us, it is sure to be something of an anthemic evening. And well, does she have the solution to that problem you were just discussing? It remains to be seen. Just hours away now. Betsy Woodruff, always great to have you here.
Likewise.
Steve, pretty good to have you here.
Yeah, all right.
You'll be here for
great to be here with you, though. I have to say, it's
all right. Thanks, Shag.
on this end.